This conference will now be recorded.
All right. I'd like to call to order the Haslett City Council meeting, special City Council meeting, July 21st, 2023 at 7 p.m. All members of the council are present in the chambers. Item number 2, public hearings, ordinances, resolutions, and action items. 2A is to discuss, consider, and act to set a date to hold a public hearing on the proposed 2023-2024 fiscal year budget. Council, the calendar we have worked out, that public hearing would be the August 14th. And that would be the date I request that we establish as the public hearing. And that allows the remainder of our budget calendar, our meetings, our workshops, et cetera, to be accomplished and be submitted in a timely manner. We just need a motion.
Mayor Halsey,
Yes.
I move that we accept August 14th for the special city council meeting for the public, for the budget public.
Motion is made to accept August 14th, a special city council meeting for the purpose of the public hearing on the budget. Is there a second?
Mayor Halsey, I second that.
There is a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Motion passes. 2B, discuss, consider, and act to adopt an ordinance that requires the city council to approve any road and street extensions or connections that come from areas outside of the city. And I will turn this over to Mr. Page.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So this ordinance was drafted in response to kind of an issue we've been facing where we have neighborhoods and other developments that are being constructed just outside of the city limits. And right now, the ordinances are unclear as to what requirements we have for those streets when they connect into the city. And so what this ordinance will do is on the front end, potentially require them to obtain traffic impact analysis and other studies as necessary and as called for by the city engineer. The roads will have to be constructed and developed in the same way that our roadways within what we consider urban subdivisions are currently done so. And then finally, before they're able to move forward, they will need to get approval from both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council. And so again, this ordinance is specifically regarding those streets that are being constructed outside of the city limits, but are connecting onto streets within the city limits. This is not going to impact any sort of state or federal roadway, and nor will it impact already constructed roads. Instead, this will be brand new roadways and mostly within neighborhoods and other new developments. So mostly minor arterial roadways that we see that are being developed within neighborhoods just outside of our corporate limits, but for whatever reason are trying to attach to roadways currently within the city or the city's ETJ. And so I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have on this.
I do want to make a point. Mr. Page was saying that's outside of the limits. We're not speaking of our ETJ. This is more specifically in the city of Fort Worth. There are developments that adjoin. I mean, we're right on the city line. And their subdivisions want to empty out onto our streets, our subdivision street. Well, this would require them to do traffic impact analysis, and if there was any upgrade requirements, traffic control items of anything of that nature, they would be required to do that. But also that would flow through planning and zoning and the city council for approval.
That was my question, was on the traffic, the TIA. It says it may be required by the city, but it doesn't really specify who pays for that? Because it says they shall pay the city a fee to cover the expense. So does the city do the traffic impact analysis and then they pay the city, or do they get it done themselves?
The developer, whomever is doing the development, would have to pay and generate and submit the traffic impact analysis to the city of Haslett.
It doesn't read like that. That's kind of what I thought too, but it says,
Mr. Page, can you address that? Maybe we need to change that. I don't know.
if studies required to be, a traffic impact study may be required, and then it goes on to say that they shall pay the city a fee to cover the expense of the TIA. So it's kind of unclear who pays that.
Yeah. So when I say when the wording is that a traffic impact analysis may be required, is that there may be circumstances where no traffic impact analysis is necessary at all, and that's really going to be up to kind of the city staff discretion on the front end, whether or not they believe that there will be significant impact to our existing roadways to require traffic impact analysis. And so in this regard, I think what this is trying to say is that the developer is obligated to provide that, whether they pay for it themselves, whether they provide one, or if we obtain one on the city's end, then they would need to pay the necessary fee to compensate the city for that. But we can, if you guys, if you don't think this language is quite specific enough, then we can certainly amend it to reflect that the developer or the applicant in this case would be required to obtain and pay for the traffic impact analysis themselves.
I have a question. Sorry, Greg. When you say if the city requires there to be a traffic analysis, is it the city of Fort Worth or the city of Haslett?
The city in this case would be Haslett. So any reference to in this ordinance would be to the city of Haslett. And so Fort Worth does fall along the boundaries and of the or the neighborhoods that we're speaking about all are in Fort Worth, but anytime we reference the city, that's always going to be the city of Haslett in here.
Maybe we should put the city of Haslett instead of just the city, just to be clear.
So this is an amendment to the city subdivision ordinance, and I would have to pull up the full ordinance, but I'm pretty sure at some point we have the city being defined as the city of Haslett elsewhere within our subdivision ordinance. So
Yeah, in the header of these, they'll define, city of Haslett in parentheses, the city. And anywhere you read city, it means the city of Haslett.
Yeah, so
I wanted to ask Councilman Morrow, what line were you reading about the paying of fee?
Yes, on this page right here at the top, the applicant shall pay to the city a fee to cover the expense of the traffic impact analysis, and the fee determination will be made by the city. But if they're paying it, then they wouldn't be paying us a fee. But if Mr. Page says it's either or, we get it and they pay us, or they get it.
No, I wanted what line item?
Right there, just.
Right, okay. 2C, the applicant may be required to conduct studies, demonstrate
Thank you.
City analysis projected. Okay, I'm looking at 2C and I still don't see maybe about a fee.
It was in 2B.
2B, oh, okay.
What he's highlighting is
All right, the applicant shall pay to the city a fee to cover the expense of the traffic impact analysis, and the fee determination will be made by the city after a review. So that is making a very good point. That says to me that we're going to have the traffic and impact analysis done. Typically, we have the applicant redo the impact analysis by a third party, traffic engineer, and have them submit the study to us. That's how all other, within our subdivisions, that's how that business is conducted.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And so I think if you were to want to approve this ordinance, then we would want to amend it to say that any traffic impact analysis would be paid for and required to be paid for by the applicant themselves without the city involved
Okay.
in it.
Can you make a note of that, whoever intends to make a motion on this? So it's 2C, 2B, and the applicant. Or how would we word that again? The applicant shall be responsible for the cost and submission of a traffic impact analysis to the city?
Yeah, so for the provision and costs, any costs related to a traffic impact analysis, yeah, traffic impact study.
Okay. Everybody got the gist of this?
You're basically rewriting that
That one
third
sentence.
something like third.
Applicant shall pay a fee to the city. Okay. Very good.
Mayor Holsey, I have one question too. Again, I think because you and I've gone back and forth on this, not from a subdivision standpoint, but from like the Milestone Church based upon the TxDOT road. When you're saying city thoroughfare, are you talking about city roads? Or are we also talking TxDOT, any road that goes through the city?
This would be on a city-owned road.
City owned.
Yes, the Milestone example would not apply to this.
I was just curious.
Right.
Even if it was within, if it was coming to
As a very
TxDOT.
specific example.
Yeah.
We have on the north part of town, there is a subdivision within the city limits of Fort Worth that adjoins our city limits, a subdivision called Nance Ranch. Lots of cars. And they want to bring all those cars into the Laterra, right on the two streets north and south of the Hassett Elementary. That would be a big impact. And in this case, this would require them, you do a traffic impact analysis, and we'll study that. Likewise, on the south end of town, there is a 900 home development going on just the west side of our ETJ, and they all want the 3 connection points on the John Day Road. Well, they would have to do an impact analysis, and that impact analysis would establish the criteria. You're doing road improvement or you're not. It may require that you put a traffic signal. It may require other things. So it's through the impact and that traffic impact analysis that will bring that about. The reason we need this is that our subdivision ordinance stops. Our jurisdiction stops at our corporate city limits. We cannot impose our requirements, even though they want to come onto a Hassett public street, without this. And it does not involve the city of Fort Worth. This does not involve the city of Fort Worth in any way.
I think it's a good ordinance. I was just curious, do any other surrounding cities have an ordinance that's similar to this? Justin, Keller?
I've not checked. I don't know.
I don't know.
Jeremy, do you know?
Yeah, so this was adapted from a couple of our other, from my firm's couple of their other cities that we represent, and so we've adopted this ordinance in the town of Bartonville, or maybe it was Copper Canyon. A couple of those up there, they've been just to deal with some of the traffic. They're kind of a smaller community that's surrounded by much larger ones, and so this is to try to kind of deal with outside traffic in a way that's both legal, constitutional, but as well as serves the residents of their city. And so again, this is not to say that we're closing any roads to Fort Worth. It's saying if you want to connect onto our existing roadway with a new road, then you're just going to need to show to us that our existing roadway can handle all the traffic that your new development may bring. And so again, like the mayor was saying, with the Laterra development, to make sure that when they connect onto those roadways just north and south of Hazlet Elementary, that they are not redirecting traffic and flooding our neighborhoods with roadways prior to them fully building out all the infrastructure within their neighborhood, because that is kind of what we're dealing with over in that area where we have John Day Road within Hazlet, and there's supposed to be another north-south roadway over in Fort Worth that will connect their neighborhood, but they haven't built that yet. And so our concern is that that a lot of the traffic will end up driving through Laterra and Hazlet to get to their homes because their developer, their builder, doesn't want to build all the infrastructure necessary at first. And so this is, again, not something to block traffic or anything like that. It's just to make sure that our roadways have are sufficient to handle any of the additional traffic that these new developments may bring.
Okay, I want to clarify. Does this include ETJ property or not?
It does.
It does.
Yes.
So the
So
developer would have to be responsible for the same thing.
If they're in a
our
Fort Worth, the ETJ is still in our jurisdiction.
Right.
When you
So-
cross
So
the
this
area
is
to
an
another,
addition. Sorry,
It's
this is
all-
an addition. This is a revision to our subdivision ordinance. Our subdivision ordinance covers not just within the properties within our corporate boundaries, but also within the ETJ. So the ETJ properties already have to comply with all of the street requirements, all of the dedication, all of that stuff already. This is really just for the areas that are connecting onto the city, whether it's within the city corporate limits or the ETJ. So this is directed towards anything outside the ETJ, outside the city limits, but also any of the roadways that connect either into the boundaries or the ETJ. So the ETJ is already counted, already is classified as the city when it comes to the subdivision ordinance regulations. If
Okay,
that makes
so they
sense.
already have to abide by our ordinances.
Yeah.
As for the ETJ. Okay.
Yeah, I just look for clarification on this. Back on paragraph 2A, B, and C. I'd really like to see that we use may on each one of those. The applicant may, just think that it's not backing up. There it goes.
May gives the engineer, city engineer, and or the staff the leeway to, you're going to do it or you don't have to.
Okay, but there's that's what, just reading those paragraphs, there's nothing in there to qualify or quantify when it's needed based on the ordinance verbiage.
Do we have reference in there upon, about the city engineer or staff?
I'd just soon see it replaced with shall. Same as we do down in, 3A and
In our subdivision ordinance, we use the word may, but it is also says as determined by the city engineer.
we need something in there to quantify when it's needed and when it's not.
Okay, do we have a reference in there that that's directed by that the may is determined by the city engineer? Can you go up one, go to page 9 as well? Okay, yeah. By the city, shall determine. Okay, that first sentence there, it's all inclusive in that it could be anybody in the city, but that person in the city would be the city engineer that would make that call. So we can insert in there city engineer. But I will say we have many ordinances that start out just like this.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I understand. I mean, if we're going through and going to put an
Yes,
ordinance
sir.
in, we ought to, let's clean this one up, and maybe we need to clean others up. But something needs to be, the applicant may, comma, determined by city engineer, be required to conduct studies. But spell out who's going to, may or say what's needed. That's all. Right now, I read it, it doesn't say who's going to tell us.
Okay, if we could, how about this, on 2B, on that first line, if we would insert, after city, we put the word engineer. That is a specific person then,
Yeah,
within the city.
Where,
It would be 2B, first sentence. After the word city, just insert the word engineer.
Okay, and I was looking at more, even on 2A, 2B, and 2C, you can simply put by city engineer right after where it says
Okay.
the applicant may, comma, by the city engineer, comma. be
Okay,
required
what
to-
line are you looking on, A?
Okay, on item number 2, or excuse me, studies required in A, it says the applicant may be required to conduct studies. All I'm saying is right after may, just insert by city engineer.
May be required to conduct studies by the city engineer.
well, I thought A already says it's got to be P and Z and city council.
For review.
Oh, for review. So you, well,
Applicant may be required to conduct studies for review. City council give a clear understanding. Post on city roads, city staff, thoroughfare, okay. Okay, that's, giving them, heads up, yeah, this may be required. All the other items are the reasons why. And then here very specifically, B goes into, here's the specific requirement. A traffic impact study may be required by the city engineer. And that ties in A. Am I tracking okay, Jeremy?
Yeah, so as the mayor indicated, a lot of this language kind of tracks what is required by our subdivision ordinance. Again, this is a revision to the regulations within the subdivision ordinance. When a plat is submitted, when a permit is submitted, and I guess, sorry, not a plat, because they won't be submitting a plat because this isn't within the Hazlet boundaries, but when a permit will be submitted, what we're doing by this ordinance is requiring it to go through a very similar process as to what any other plat would have to go through, where it would be submitted to the city and it would be reviewed by the city engineer. And the city engineer then, on behalf of the city, would be able to go and look under those factors listed under 2A, ensuring that the city roads and streets are properly impacted and to minimize any conflict and all that stuff, and then to require a traffic impact analysis or other studies. And so I think that's kind of important to look at. Like, this is kind of, we're just making these roadways that are currently outside of our jurisdiction for them to obtain a permit to connect to our roadways, and then have it so that it's subject to what is essentially our other requirements, which is have an engineer review it, have any engineering plans approved, and then have it be approved by both P and Z and council. And so I understand that we want to be very specific, and absolutely, I mean, as an attorney, I definitely understand we want to be precise with our language, but it's, again, this is just making sure the ordinance itself, the engineer is the only one that can really do that, because they're the ones, just practically speaking, are the ones that will be reviewing it and requiring any sort of traffic impact analysis or other studies, such as drainage or environmental issues that may come up with this connection. And so, we can revise it certainly to clarify that the city engineer would be the one that does that. But again, just practically speaking, that is the city engineer's job. And so they will be the ones doing it regardless.
I would like to say in support of that, it says a traffic impact study may be required by the city. Okay, well, that individual, that person, that department that represents the city on these matters is the city engineer.
Okay, well, I mean,
They could
Jeremy thinks we got it covered there.
no one could argue their way out of this ordinance.
I mean, if Jeremy thinks we're covered with it,
Yeah.
then
That's kind of my question, Mr. Page. So you don't think we really need to clarify that?
I do not. It's there's nothing for them to contest, like the mayor said. The only thing,
I asked them
it's just,
if they
and
needed
so
to clarify that.
we also want to keep it broad enough so that we aren't limited to what the city engineer wants. That's the other thing. And so there may be times that for whatever reason that maybe that this will allow us so that it's the city broadly, the city staff reviewing this permit that will do this, so that we're not hamstrung by saying, oh, maybe one day we don't have a city engineer for whatever reason, and then all of a sudden they can say, well, you don't have an engineer, so you can't require anything of it. This is, again, just keeping it a little bit more broad. But I will say the proposed amendments to require any traffic impact analysis to be paid for by third parties, that's certainly something to clarify and something to change, because that is an actual change to what's written right here. But as to clarifying who would require the analysis or the studies, I don't think that's necessary.
If we would go to C, page 10. So we're agreeing that that last sentence, that the gist of it is the applicant shall provide a traffic impact analysis by a third party
That's B.
at their expense
Yes, on B,
on B.
not C.
Okay. All right. Are there any other items or paragraphs in here that we could address? Okay. All right then.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance that requires the city council to approve any road and street extensions or connections that come from areas outside the city, with one amendment. Item 2B, delete the 3 words "to the city" in the last sentence. So we'll read, the applicant shall pay a fee to cover the expense, blah, blah.
Can we add a traffic impact analysis to be performed by a third party?
That's the first sentence. A traffic impact study may be required by the city, which shall determine the effect and impact that the extension of roads and streets into the city's transportation system will have on the city's existing and planned roads. The applicant shall pay to cover the expense of the traffic impact analysis and the fee determination. So that if you just take out "to the city," then that puts the onus on them paying.
Okay, very good. A motion has been made to approve the ordinance that requires city council to approve any road and street extensions or connections that come from areas outside of the city, with an amendment on item 2B of page 10, deleting "pay to the city." Is that correct? That is okay. Is there a second?
Mayor Holsey, I'll second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? There is none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? It's unanimous, 5-0. Motion carries. Thank you, council. Item 3, executive session. There is no need for executive session. Floor is mute. Item 5, adjournment. May I have a motion?
Mayor Holsey, I move to adjourn.
Motion's made to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Page.
Yes. Thank you. Good night, guys.
The meeting is concluded at 7:29 p.m. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, council.